Markets, the JSE All Share ending the day in a third of a percent in the green. The local market benefiting from those resource stocks. I mean, they were 1.1% higher. There's also been some strong company results in the United States. And when you have the world's biggest economy showing those results, sentiment internationally lifts. Well, Martin Smith is from eNCA Capital. Very quickly before the top of the hour, let's just go through what's been happening on the markets. Martin, thanks for joining us. I mean, a big part of this was the fact that you have the world's biggest economy having corporate results that are good, and I suppose that lifted sentiment overall globally, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen it a lot the last couple of weeks. Sentiment has definitely been kind of half glass empty type of scenarios. You've seen markets pick up quite nicely, specifically globally. Obviously, South Africa has been relatively resilient throughout this year, so not as much as the rest of the world. But yeah, things are looking positive for right now, but there still are some overhangs. Investors are still a little nervous. You've got geopolitical tensions, you've got wars, you've got COVID in some pockets, and you've also got the big potential for recession in the States. So still a lot of overhangs. Hopefully we are moving towards more positive territory.
Listen, this whole idea about interest rates going up, I mean, we see it in the developed world. The Bank of England now announcing the biggest interest rate hike that we've seen in a number of years coming from that country. Again, how does that play out? Because one would imagine that, whenever you get interest rates going up, the impact on the market and economies are just inevitable, aren't they?
No, absolutely. And I think we will always take our lead from the biggest economy in the world, which is obviously the States. So no real surprise. I mean, they increased interest rates by 50 basis points today, the most in 27 years, largely in line with expectations. We do need to remember that the BOE represents, call it 2% of global GDP, or England represents 2% of global GDP. So not massive from a global perspective in that instance, but from an overall sentiment perspective, it is a little bit negative. I think the UK kind of finds themselves in a bit of a tricky situation with energy, along with what's kind of happening in the rest of Europe on the back of the war there. So tricky for them in terms of global perspective, not massively moving the needle.
Listen, just finally, Martin, anyone holding a Sasol share here would be quite happy. I mean, I see the company expecting a significant rise in full-year earnings, and it's quite ironic while we suffer in some areas because of these global political tensions. The crude oil goes up, prices of chemicals goes up, and it's good news for Sasol. What did you make of that update?
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with you. Relatively in line with expectations, which is good. I think the company is well positioned. We are buyers of Sasol here. So if you have the share, definitely hold it, in my opinion. Optically quite cheap. We think oil prices are going to stay longer or higher for longer, should I say. And unless you have a global recession come into play, I think you've got a good position there.
All right, and that will take us, thanks very much indeed, Martin. That will take us to see what's been happening with the local market. Here's a roundup of those figures.